Have you ever looked at someone's life online and think, wow, they've got it all figured out? Yeah, us too. But we're here to pull back the curtain, because behind every highlight reel is a story full of pivots, pain, and purpose.
I'm Jonathan. I've built things, literal things, homes, investments, businesses, and I've lost it all, more than once.
And I'm Melissa. When we got married in 2010, little did we know we'd lose everything and have to move in with our parents. From there, we opened a gym, worked odd jobs, hustled through heartbreaks and blessings, and somehow God used every bit of it.
This episode is our real, raw beginning, not the filtered version, the journey that shaped us into who we are.
So if you're in the middle of your own messy middle, you're not alone. Let's go there together. You were created to live abundantly and multiply in every area of your life. But let's be honest, the road isn't always easy.
We know that firsthand. We've been through highs and lows, from losing everything to now managing an investment fund, and we're still on the journey.
This podcast isn't about having it all figured out. It's about real stories, kingdom principles, and trusting God with what's already in your hands.
On Mandate to Multiply, we go deep into faith, family, finances, and other topics, sharing what we've learned and what we're still learning as we walk it out with Jesus.
If you're ready to think bigger, live boldly, and multiply what matters most,
then you're in the right place. We're Jonathan and Melissa Edmiston, and this is Mandate to Multiply.
All right, so here we are. Welcome to the very first episode of Mandate to Multiply.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome. We are so glad that you guys are here. We can't believe it's actually happening. We've been talking about this podcast and launching this podcast for a while, and this is it. It's episode 1. And we figured for episode 1, we would just kind of go back to a little bit of our story. We want to tell you where we're at now, but most importantly, we want to tell you the journey to get here. And not to say we've arrived by any means, because we're still on a journey. We'll always be on a journey, but we do want to share some of the messy, ugly, hard things that we went through to kind of get us to this point.
Yeah, because it's easy to look at somebody where they're currently at and miss all the years that it took to get there. All the hurts, all the hangups, all the heartbreaks. I'll never forget, I was listening to John Maxwell, and he said somebody came up to him one time and said, "I want to do what you do." And John Maxwell looked at him and said, "Of course you want to do what I do. Everybody wants to do what I do. You want to be on stage. You want to be famous. You want to do all this. But do you want to do what I had to do in order to get here?" And most people don't realize what goes into success, and very few are willing to pay that price.
And unfortunately, it's not all glamorous. It's not all highlight worthy, Instagram worthy. A lot of it is just like painful, messy, hard stuff. A lot of obedience, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of fun stories, a lot of very funny stories. A lot of stories that are funny now, but weren't so funny when we walked through them. So we just kind of really want you to feel like you're sitting at our kitchen table. We were talking yesterday even about, like, I said, oh my gosh, and this is just a little sneak peek, but I said to Jonathan, can you believe we lived in our 30s? We lived in a 55 and older community. Like, how did that happen? And now we laugh at it, but when it was happening, we're like, what are we doing here? So we just kind of want to make it no fluff. We're just going to show you all. We want to be real, raw, transparent. I often say it's very hard for me to look at somebody who is successful and doing what I aspire to do without knowing what they went through to get there. And I think that's the mistake a lot of people make, is like they just share the good stuff, but we got to start sharing the hard stuff too, so that when you're going through it, you don't feel like quitting and you don't feel crazy because you only see somebody else's highlight reel. And so we're going to make sure we change that.
So today we're going back to the beginning. Before any of the businesses, before the social media, before the kids. And we're going to look at the lessons that we learned along the way, the parts that most people just don't talk about.
We're talking about being homeless. And now, when I say being homeless, some people get a little bit offended because they're like, you didn't live under a bridge. You didn't live in a tent. No, thank God for family, because we didn't have a place to live. And so technically, if you look up the definition of homeless, it's not having a permanent dwelling place or residence or something. So it's like we didn't have that. Like we had nowhere that we could call our own at one point and go live. So thank God for parents. But technically, we were homeless. So we're going to talk about from the time we were homeless to owning a gym, mopping gym floors. I mean, it's been a lot of things in between. So we just want to share it all with you.
And getting blindsided by setbacks. There were so many things that we were planning for throughout the years that just didn't happen. Mm-hmm. So if you're in a place where nothing makes sense yet, this episode is for you because we've been there. And honestly, some days we're still there.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to start at the beginning and we're going to show you even the messiest parts of our story. We're going to kind of go back. And I'm sure as we record this podcast, there's going to be things that we remember. I think there's some things that we've walked through that really could be an entire podcast episode or multiple. But we're going to try to go back and bring you along the journey from the beginning.
And if you see something you like, reach out to us and you want us to talk more and share more about it. If it'll help you and if you're going through something that you can relate to, let us know so that we can dive deeper into that and maybe help bring our story to bring healing and help to where you are currently.
And most importantly, what we want this to do for you, what we want you to understand, what we want you to take away from this is that everything can be used, right? Like God will use it all. So the things that don't make sense, the situations you find yourself in that you're like, why am I here? What is this for? I was supposed to be here and instead I'm here and it looks completely different. We want you to understand that everything can be used for the greater good. One of our life's verses is Romans 8:28, and we truly believe that God will use everything for the greater good. And we have so many stories where we look back and in the moment, it didn't make sense. It was really difficult. It was really painful. It was really disappointing, embarrassing, all the things. And now we look back and we can clearly look at things and be like, wow, if that wouldn't have happened, we wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, one of the great things about getting older is that you're able to look back and see God's hand at work in every single scenario in your past. Mm-hmm. The things that were hurtful, the things that were painful. I remember to what Melissa was saying when we were living in the 55 and older community. I know the Bible says that God will never leave us or forsake us. And I remember like just crying out to God one day, feeling like, God, I know what your word says, but I feel forsaken right now. Why is this happening? And to look back at that very moment and then where he's brought us to today is just incredible.
Yeah, it's really awesome. I just cry thinking about it. All right, let's jump in to the details. Okay, so basically, a little quick intro on who we are, right? We already told you, my name is Melissa. My husband's name is Jonathan. We live in Wilmington, North Carolina, a beautiful coastal town. I always say it's got the best of everything. I don't know if we'll be here forever. I know right now this is where God has us and we do love it. We have the ability to go out on our boat whenever we want. We have the ocean, but you also have a historic downtown, cobblestone streets. So this is where we live. We live in Wilmington. We have 3 boys, okay? So everyone that always hears like how many boys we have and their ages are like, wow, you're really busy. Like, yes. Our boys.
It's never a dull moment in our house.
Never a dull moment, rarely quiet moments, but they are ages 7, 9, and 11. So now we run an investment fund, which the journey of how we got here is pretty wild. But just to kind of give you like where we're at now, we run an investment fund, a multi-asset investment fund. We have the great privilege and honor of being able to steward the funds of other people. So we get to bring them into a pool, a fund essentially, and we get to multiply the money for them. We get to provide them with passive income and generational wealth as well as protection. So that is like one of the main things we do. And the other main thing that we do is we run a real estate firm. And we started that. I will say that was mostly built in my years of stay-at-home momming, which is like a whole other story of how I've gone from that to sitting here talking to you about stewarding millions for other people. But in that stay-at-home mom season, Jonathan built HomeSmart Expert Realty, and that has grown from 0 agents. At one point, we had over 125 agents, multiple offices. And so that's kind of like the 2 main things that God has us building, growing, and stewarding in this season.
But it didn't always look that way. So let's take a step back and show you where it really started. Mm-hmm. My background has always been in real estate. I started in real estate in 1999, right out of high school. I was a baby, had no idea what I was doing, but I had family involved in real estate and just the hand of God on my life to kind of guide me in that direction. Ended up buying several properties from 1999 up until 2008. And also in that time was able to go to Bible school, got a degree in ministry, and then went on to Liberty University to get my master's in business administration. Throughout that time, I was also able to get a general contractor's license and just really learn the ins and outs of investing in real estate. The thing that really kicked off the change in my life was in 2008, the real estate market collapsed. And it was right before I had met Melissa. And I thought that whenever I got married, it was going to be all set. My wife wasn't going to have to work. We had plenty of real estate, plenty of passive income coming in. I thought I was well diversified because I had plenty of different properties. But little did I know that all of the properties that I had were still in the same asset class. So I thought my eggs were in different baskets, but they were all in the basket of real estate. And when the economy collapsed in 2008, 2009, the tenants weren't able to pay their rent, and I ended up losing all of those properties.
Yeah, that is wild. When I met Jonathan, he was kind of still in that world, right? So I feel like we could do a whole podcast episode on the psychology that goes into meeting somebody. Now, thank God, I did not marry him for his money, nor did I like him for his money. God has tested me in that area many times before I met Jonathan. I've had, and that's again another podcast episode, but there have been many occasions in my life where I could have married for money or dated somebody for money. That was not happening for me. I knew what that would end up being like. So when I met Jonathan and I fell in love with him, it had nothing to do with his money. However, it was this like, oh, we're going to be okay. Like he has all this real estate and he has made a lot of money. I always say Jonathan is like world's most interesting man. I thought that when I met him. I still think that today because he can do so many different things. Real estate, building, general contractor. He can sing. He can play the harmonica. I mean, hello, when we met, one of the things he did when we were dating is like my favorite song of all time, because it's me and my dad's song, is Billy Joel Piano Man. And Jonathan, one day I get in his car and he just starts playing Billy Joel Piano Man on the harmonica. And I'm like, who is this guy? Like, I like him a lot. And then he would sing to me. Our first date, our first Valentine's Day, he can also fly planes, okay? He had his pilot license and he takes me to go fly a plane for Valentine's Day. And I like land the plane. So I just fell in love with him because of who he was and because of his personality. And we'll share a story on another day of what he said to me the first time we met. And I knew you were
she chased me down in the parking lot.
Oh my goodness. We were not going to talk about this story today. Are you going to go there?
No.
Okay. We'll talk about the how we met story because I think it's really sweet. And we have slightly different versions of the story. But he says I chased him down in the parking lot. I say the Holy Spirit made me do it, and we just have two different versions of the story. But ultimately, I say all that to say, I didn't fall in love with him for his money, but there's something to the fact when you meet somebody and everything is going to be taken care of. Like I'm still excited to build with him and to co-labor with him and to be his helpmate. But then all of a sudden you get married and it's like someone just pulls the rug out from under you and you're like, just kidding. Because he starts losing all of his properties and this life that we had talked about in the year that we were engaged. 6 months we were engaged. We got engaged 6 months after we met and got married 6 months after that. In that time, we kind of had this plan for our life and we had this vision and we had all these things. This is how it's going to go. And then all of a sudden, after we get married, everything starts to change.
Yeah, what do they say? If you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Yeah. And looking back, obviously we know now that God had to do a work in us, in our character, in our hearts, in our minds, because all the dreams and visions and desires that he put in our heart were in fact for us But he couldn't give it to us when we wanted it or when we thought it was coming, because it would have just destroyed us, or worse. I always say now, like, my greatest fear is that God would give us something that would take me away from him, that would make me need him less, that would make me adore him less. And I know, looking back now, our hearts were not ready to handle what I believe he can trust us with today. So we met and everything just started going downhill. We lived in a beautiful apartment in Coral Gables, and all of a sudden it was time to pay rent, or lease was up, and it was like, yeah, we're running out of money, essentially. Now, I always want to say, I do believe God uses everything. I also believe, looking back, and this is why I love to mentor and give wisdom to younger couples, because there are things we could have done differently in hindsight, right? Like, nothing happened to us and we were not victims. We could have certainly made different choices to maybe not be in the position that we were in. Yeah. But ultimately, that's where we found ourselves. No more money for rent, needing to renew our lease, but not being able to do it. Our landlords were so sweet. They tried to give us grace, but it was like, okay, your grace has run out, and so has your money. You have to go. And ultimately, that's what we did. We packed up all our stuff. We decided we were going to, and mind you, when this was happening, and I know some of you can relate to this feeling, it's like it's happening and you're like, okay, God's going to do a miracle. Something's going to happen. Yeah. Something's going to come through. Somebody's going to give us money. A job is going to land on our lap. Like, we were so desperate and willing to do everything, but literally nothing was happening in a different direction other than it's time to lose your home and have no place to live.
Well, and we were also standing on the promises of God. We had prophetic words about breakthrough, about suddenly moments that we were clinging to. And we had several things that we had invested in that we were waiting for, that was going to bring enough financially for us to do big things with. Mm-hmm. And looking back, like you were talking about, our hearts just weren't in a place to steward what we were believing for at the time. And it would have probably caused us more harm than good. And the good Father knows us well enough to not give us those things that we're asking for, because he knew it would break us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. We know now, like I said, he used it all for the greater good. And man, there were times where we had nothing other than relying on each other and Jesus. And so much so that we'll never forget the night that we packed everything up, moved out of our apartment. And it was one of those things where you really feel like you're like living somebody else's life. You're like, this can't actually be happening to me. This can't be my life. This isn't really happening. But we packed our bags, and all I remember is literally holding a suitcase and each other and knocking on my mom's door. It was like the knock of shame. Well,
the first night we stayed in a motel.
That was actually the second night.
That was the second night?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you remember why?
Oh, you got in a fight with your mom.
Yes.
That's right.
To add to the fun, one of the most embarrassing things you could ever do is go to your parents' house with your 1-year newly married husband and say, we have nowhere to live. Can we please stay here? Right? Like, that is not easy for an only child daughter ever to do. I'm sure it was even harder for you as a man, but I was carrying both. Like, I felt terrible because I'm like, I know what my parents are thinking. I know what they're going to say. And also I felt bad for you because I know what it would do for them in how they viewed you, or like, it's just human nature, right? So we did the knock of shame, walk in the door, and we're all just kind of sitting outside talking. And it was hard, like hard conversations, it was really hard. My heart was not ready yet, and I was very immature. So I did not like some of the things that were being said, although they were true and my parents had every right to be saying them. I basically said, we're leaving. I can't do this. Still had a lot of pride, still had a lot of heart issues I had not dealt with. And so we left, and we had with Mia. We had a little Maltese. How much money did we have left in our bank account?
Not
a lot. $72. I think it was like $72 left in our bank account. Literally, you guys, $72. We walked out of my mom's house. We're like, and it's like, where are we going now? I'm like, I don't know. So I think we did like Priceline.
Yeah.
And we stayed in a hotel. And I share this story to say, I remember this feeling and I carry it with me often, for good though, not for shame. We stayed in a hotel in downtown Miami. That's where we lived at the time, downtown Miami. And it was our last $72, and we were taking Mia for a walk. And we walked in front of Publix, which is a grocery store. We walked in front of Publix, and I'll never in my life forget the feeling of walking by a grocery store and watching those big doors open. And I just remember taking a deep breath and going like, I can't walk in there and buy anything. I would really like to. I'd like to buy some food. I'd like to buy whatever I want. I just want to be able to buy whatever I want, honestly. But even if I wanted to, I can't go in there right now and make a purchase. And that feeling was very painful. And so now when I see other people in a situation like that, I'm like, man, I know that feeling of not being able to buy food in a grocery store. And also I carry that feeling because I never want to feel that ever again. And I never want my children to have to feel that feeling unless God needs to do a little something in them too. Then we'll let him go through it if he needs to. So yeah, that's kind of where we were. And basically after that $72 night in downtown Miami, not being able to buy anything at Publix, guess where we ended the next day? Ended up the next day. Back at my mom's house. Did another knock of shame. We're like, I'm sorry. I messed up. Please forgive me. We really have nowhere to live. And thank God my parents graciously took us in. We lived there, I don't remember for how long.
Yeah, I don't either.
But not only did we live in my parents' house, Jonathan went from making multiple six figures, having all the degrees, having all the experience. He had built houses, resold houses, had multiple investment properties, had the degrees, had all the things. He ended up taking a job with my stepdad as a helper. Was it $12 an hour?
I think so.
Yeah. And so we share this amount of detail and honesty because I don't ever want anyone to think that they're too far gone or they're in a place that they could never come out of or that they can't go from where you are now to where you have vision and heart and desire and passion for, because the journey can be way different than what we think.
Yeah, I just remember that time. Gosh, I was probably submitting 50 applications a day, 50 resumes a day.
Yeah.
Just trying to find some place that I could get hired.
Yeah, this was before we lost our apartment. So we did try. Before we lost our apartment, Jonathan was applying everywhere and anywhere that he possibly could.
Yeah, and because I had run my own company and kind of been my own boss, I didn't really feel the need to create a bunch of relationships in the business world. And one of the many lessons that I learned at that time is relationships are more valuable than money. Mm-hmm. And I realize that now, but I hadn't sowed into relationships. I hadn't developed relationships. And I was just cold emailing and cold applying without any relationship with anybody in the business world. And what I found is most of the time, the jobs that were being hired or the positions that were being filled, they were already filled before the job was even posted. The posting was just a formality. Mm-hmm. So not knowing anybody was really hurting me, and it caused me to have to take a job that I was severely overqualified for, but it's the only thing that I could get in order to have some income coming in to help buy food and everything.
Yeah, at that point, it just became, okay, we trust God. We believe everything he says. We know he's good. We know he's faithful. But right now, we need to just do what we need to do to put money on the table, to pay our bills and to get out of our parents' house, right? Like that was the mission. And so we did a few things, which we'll get into in the next episode, but basically jobs that we were overqualified for. I think that's where I started working at the church, maybe coaching at the gym. That's when I became a CrossFit coach, which is another story of that led me to be a CrossFit coach, which led us to open our own gym one day, which taught me so much. And again, all of it has been used in our life for a purpose. And so nothing in the kingdom of God is ever wasted. I think the wasteful part is when you're in something and you don't have that perspective. You don't have that heart posture of okay, I don't know why I'm mopping these floors. I don't know why I'm working alongside as an electrician helper. I don't know why I'm doing this, but I know that there's something for me to learn here. There's somewhere for me to grow here. There's some way that this is going to be used. And so if we could just shift our heart posture in that way, it will all be used.
And I think that's a principle that we really need to hammer home is showing up when it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
because it didn't feel like growth at the time. It just hurt.
Yeah, it was all painful.
But now that we're older and we can look back and we're on the other side of it, we can see how God was preparing us through those events and through that time.
Yeah, it goes back to just him using it all for greater good. And it's hard when you're in it, right? Like hindsight's 2020. We can say that now, but when we were in it, we really had no idea what was going on.
Right. But this is what this podcast is all about, to give people hope that if you're in it right now, keep going, because you don't know what God has on the other side of it for you.
Yeah, so we hope that this entertaining behind the scenes or pulling back the curtain, we hope that it has somehow encouraged you, made you laugh, been impactful in some way. There's a lot more where this came from. We're just like giving you a brief overview at this point. So we just really hope that you stick around, keep listening. If this was impactful for you in some way, or you know somebody that would really be encouraged by listening to this, please make sure that you share it with them, subscribe, like, leave a review, do all those things. It just helps us get out to more people. And stay tuned for more episodes to come.
Should we tell people what to expect going forward?
Yeah. Basically, you're going to get a lot more stories like this.
We have plenty of them.
We have lots of them. Oh my goodness, we have lots of them. We have lots of honesty. If you can't tell, I really don't mind being very transparent, very open and honest and real, because I think not doing that doesn't really help anybody. And so sometimes I'm maybe a little too transparent and honest, but that's what you're going to get. And we just always want you to remember that you're not alone. And that any part of the journey that you're on, whether you are already walking in God's promises for your life and fully living out so many amazing areas of your life, number one, if you are, there will always be trials, right? Or whether you're where we were 15 years ago and you're going through hard stuff and you don't understand, we just want you to know you're not alone in all of it. In the hard times, in the success, and everything in between, you are not alone, and you weren't meant to ever be alone. And we need each other, and we need each other's stories. And that's why we started Mandate to Multiply. It is, of course, about multiplying finances. We're going to talk a lot about finances, but we felt like it was more important to go back, or just as important to go back and give you a little bit about who we are and our stories before we just start talking about multiplying wealth. We're also going to talk about multiplying what's in your hands. We're going to talk about multiplying your faith, your family, your joy, just really every area of your life. So we're excited to keep doing that with you, and just really grateful that you're here.
I heard it said one time that a smart man learns from his own mistakes. A wise man learns from the mistakes of others. So my hope for you is that you would learn from some of our mistakes and you wouldn't have to make those things on your own.
Absolutely.
So if this episode hit home, take a second to share it with someone who you think might need it. We've got so much more coming for you. But for now, just remember, your story isn't over. It's just beginning. Before you go, remember, God can use anything. Even the hardest parts of your story can become seeds for multiplication.
If this episode encouraged you, share it with a friend, leave a review, or subscribe so you never miss a moment of hope and truth.
You can also follow us on Mandate to Multiply on Instagram or mandatetomultiply.com to keep growing with us.
Until next time, trust God, steward well what's in your hand,
and live a life fully multiplied.